Here on Locked On Blue Jackets, we are rounding out our week of draft coverage with some more prospect profiles as we look at a couple of players that could potentially be future Columbus Blue Jackets. Today, we're talking to Jared Brown all about Cutter Gauthier of the US National Development Team. All that is coming up today on Locked On Blue Jackets.
Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster. Super glad that you are here with me to talk about all things Blue Jackets and all things the future of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Thank you for making this your first listen or your first watch of the day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and also on YouTube. So if you want to subscribe over there, make sure you go and hit that button and you'll get all of the podcasts directly onto your phone. It is easier for you and much better for me. So today, like I said at the top of the show, we're doing another prospect corner, another prospect profile. We've got Jared Brown of Draft Pro Hockey here to talk all about Cutter Gauthier, who is a prospect that I didn't know a ton about until just now when I talked to Jared about him. So I'll just jump right into that. So we know Columbus is going to be drafting 6th overall and 12th overall after the results of Tuesday night's draft lottery, which means now our draft profiles can have a little bit more specificity to them. So I've got Jared Brown back, friend of the show. We've had him on before. Always great to talk to him. And we're going to be doing a couple more prospect profiles just to round out this week of draft lottery coverage. How's it going, Jared?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on again. Really enjoy coming on, and hopefully I can share some more light on new players that Columbus could choose at 6 and 12.
Yeah, I know you have been super busy with the Draft Pro Hockey draft ranking. So yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time. And I feel like every time I sit down with like a draft expert or a prospect expert, I come away thinking like, man, maybe Columbus should try to draft him. So I'm interested
Yeah.
to get just a couple more guys who. The first one we're going to talk about, I'm really interested in because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not super up on prospects, but I like to think I know enough to make me dangerous, especially after doing. I think this will be like 13 and 14 of the prospect profiles. Until they released the newest, like the official draft rankings, I had never heard of Cutter Gauthier until
hmm
they were like, yeah, he's the third best North American skater. So like I guess my first question is like, have I just been missing this huge prospect all this time as he shot up the rankings? Like, what's going on with Cutter Gauthier, and why is he such a new name in my mind?
I don't think it's a case of this player shot up the rankings and has surprised everyone. I think it's more of a case to show how really close the draft crop is this year, even in North America. Like it started out, the top three players with your preliminary rankings were probably Shane Wright, Matt Savoy, and Brad Lambert. And now I know Brad Lambert plays in Europe, but that was the top three players that you really talked about. Um, and it's a bit all over the place. I see Savoy now dropping in some people's rankings and some mock drafts, but Cutter Gauthier is a guy who he did surprise me actually in his I guess his draft plus 1 year when he was with the under 17 program team with the United States. I thought he was a bit under radar. You had guys like Logan Cooley and Isaac Howard that really stole the show that year. I thought he was really good and he was kind of underrated. Just his all around game is what I really liked. And then this year, I mean, I went back. Literally a couple nights ago, I went back to go check out some of his just shift by shifts from the U18s, and this is a player that he's really caught my eye. I mean, he's someone that he possesses many projectable pro tools. Like he can play a skilled game. He can play with size and strength. To play a heavy type of game. He finishes checks. And then probably the best part of his game is his shot and his scoring instincts. He can be a trigger man on the power play, and that's where he's been pretty deadly this year. I mean, I think he had over 30 goals with the program, and he had in the gold medal game for the U18s against Sweden. He registered, I think, around 15 to 17 shot attempts. So the guy likes to shoot. That's clear. But I think he's a guy who has just many, many tools to succeed for the NHL, and I think that's why he's vaulted up all the way to what is that, third best North American skater now. So we'll see. We'll see if NHL teams and organizations feel the same way and where he'll go come draft day.
Yeah, having kind of looked into him a little bit after kind of looking at these draft rankings and being like, "Wow, I can't believe they've done my boy Frank Nazar dirty like this."
Yeah,
I kind of was like, "Could it Gauthier? I guess." And so I looked into him and was like, "Oh, okay, he's 6'3". That probably I feel like that probably plays into it a
yeah,
little bit, but is that, I feel like the knock on the bigger guys is always, "Oh, they can't skate, they're not fast enough." Is that
hmm
something that you get from Gauthier, or is he one of those rare guys that is big and kinda like when I was talking about Uri Slavkovsky with, Kale
hmm
Holm of Smart Scouting, he was like, "Yeah, Slavkovsky skates well. Not just well for a big guy, but well." Is
yeah.
Gauthier kind of in that, or is he a guy that you think, "Oh, he skates okay, but he's also 6'3", so, you give up some skill
Yeah.
for size?"
Yeah, no, I don't have any issues with his skating. I think his skating will translate to the NHL fine. You just watch the mechanics of his stride. He uses a lot of crossovers to gallop kind of through the neutral zone with the puck, where he is able to kind of skate with some impressive bursts at times. Um, and I just think he's very fluid going both north south and east to west, which is something that is you know a very good tool to have already, because normally in prospects you may have one, they may only be good in one of those aspects. They may be a really strong north south skater, but they struggled kind of moving east to west, and obviously this is all, like, let's say, controlling the puck. So I don't have any issues with the skating. I think it's pretty fluid. I think there's some, I'd say he could work on his acceleration, like his first two-step acceleration. You can see that in kind of sometimes race for pucks, but as soon as he mixes in some crossovers, you see the speed start to come, and then he utilizes that long reach at being 6'2", 6'3", whatever he is, and he's able to really protect it off the rush and in transition. And so I think it's a guy who he won't struggle really with the transition game. But when it comes to, let's say, back checking. Not to say he's a bad back checker, but you do need some good acceleration to help back check. And I think that's one area that he could probably work on a little bit more.
Yeah. That feels like, in terms of things that, like, the NHL team development can teach him, that feels like it's
Yeah.
probably pretty easy to implement as opposed to, like, if a guy has, low hockey IQ, say,
hmm
a lot easier to
Yeah.
teach those 2
No.
strides than it is to teach, "Hey, make this decision instead of that decision." So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
does he
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, it's one of those, you know, aspects where, if you got a good skating coach or a good skating development team, you can train them to kind of improve the stride mechanics and all that. And like you said, if they don't have the hockey IQ, or even sometimes not just hockey IQ, it's commitment and compete. If they don't have that, that's one red flag, and that's going to stop them from getting meaningful NHL minutes, really. If you're not giving your all on the back check, or if you're doing lazy line changes because you don't want to get a minus, like, you're not going to be trusted by NHL coaches, and we've seen that by a lot of skilled players.
Yeah. So he's listed on Elite Prospect as a center slash left wing.
hmm
Is this a guy that is a legit NHL center, do you think? I feel like that's kind of been a big thing
Yeah.
for Blue Jackets prospects recently is obviously Kent Johnson was drafted as a center, and I don't know that a lot of people necessarily see him as a center in the NHL. Cole
Yeah,
Sillinger, again, was drafted as a center. I think he's doing better. I don't know if he's necessarily the number one center that
yeah.
we really need him to turn into. Is Gauthier kind of in that same boat of probably drafted as a center, might be a better fit on the wing, or
So he fits that
yeah,
exactly. I think he's going to be a left winger in the NHL. He's for a lot for I would say good portion of the season he's played alongside Logan Cooley and Jimmy Snuggerud. Jimmy Snuggerud's the right winger, and Logan Cooley has been down the middle at times. I mean, Cutter Gauthier has been slotted on that left wing to really make that one of the best lines in junior hockey. And so he takes faceoffs occasionally, but I'd say he's primarily a left winger. And I think that's what he will be in the NHL. I mean, he will probably get drafted listed as a center like Kent Johnson, but I think he's going to be better suited on the wing.
in a minute, I've got more of my conversation with Jared about Gautier, but first I want to tell you about a new sponsor, and they have a product that I use literally every day. I started taking AG1 because I wanted to be a little bit more healthy, I wanted more energy, and I wanted to get all of the benefits from all of the minerals without all of the effort, taking a bunch of different vitamins and pills, and so I found Athletic Greens and I've been taking it for a few months now, and I love it. It doesn't taste super healthy. It has this kind of nice tropical fruity taste that I've started to look forward to every morning, and I feel so much better. So, what is it? With one scoop of delicious AG1, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole foods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Basically, all the things that you need to feel better in your body. Cost you less than $3 a day, which is cheaper than your cold brew habit. They are keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, and gluten free. And they have over 7,000 5-star reviews from professional athletes and leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It is just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That is it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Yeah, I feel like that's been I don't know if this is again like confirmation bias because I've been paying attention to it for the last couple of years. I feel like once you get out of the top kind of two or three centers in the draft,
Hmm.
suddenly you're looking at a lot of these guys that are listed as centers and are actually wingers, you
Yeah,
know? So
yeah.
it's
I mean, the thing, one of the big aspects with that is you get pushed aside because the team has already good center depth, right? I mean, let's take, I'll throw LA Kings out, for example. I mean, their center depth right now, you have Kopitar, Deneau, and Philip Deneau as your number one and two centers. Quinton Byfield has always been a natural center his entire life, but I don't see him taking over Philip Deneau's role as the second line center. So he's going to maybe have to adapt to the wing or play as a third line center. And then on top of that, you have Alex Turcotte, another one of their top draft picks they've had in the system. He's always been a natural center. And with Byfield in the mix too, I mean, uh, there's four centermans right there, but I don't think Turcotte and Byfield want to be third, fourth line centers considering where they were drafted. I think they're going to have to adapt to a winger role. And so, most of the time you get these players who play center for a lot during junior and all that, and they have to adapt and they have to change to the wing. So, much like Cutter Gauthier, I think that's going to be the case. Although he has already transitioned to the wing for a lot of this season.
yeah, it's a very similar thing to Ken Johnson, who drafted as a center and then played basically the entire the entirety of his sophomore season
Yeah.
on the wing with I want to say it might have been in
Yeah, I think
center
so.
and
Yeah.
Brennan Brisson.
Mhm.
So it could be another case of drafting a center and then being like, oh, actually, no, we're going to play him at wing. However, the Blue
Yeah.
Jackets don't have a lot of actual centers.
Mhm.
You know, we've kind of got, I would say, generously, I would give them 2.5 centers on
Yeah.
a on a good day with everyone healthy. So it could get
Yeah.
interesting. I know we've talked about this before in terms of prospects, and I know you don't necessarily have NHL comparables for every prospect. Is
Yeah.
there anyone that like stands out as that's like a
Mhm.
Kutagochi type player?
So, I was actually thinking about this today, thinking about coming up because I figured you were gonna ask me this question.
It's my favorite question
Um,
to ask. Perfect.
yeah, and so I was thinking of some comparables that come to mind, and there is one comparable that Blue Jackets fans know very well. It's Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Yes.
I think he's got kind of the frame and the size of him. He's got the finishing ability, and then he's got that ability to play a heavy, tough game like Dubois does. So he's the closest guy I can think of as a comparison. There was another name that came to my mind. It was Andrei Svechnikov, but I
Mm,
don't think he's going to be as let's say like I think Svechnikov is a top line winger every day of the week in the NHL, and Cutter Gauthier he definitely could get there. But I look at him as more of a. I think he could excel as a second line winger. I think Svechnikov is a way more explosive skater. So that's or I don't think Goche has that level of explosiveness. He has a bit, but it's not Svechnikov level. Also, Svechnikov just loves to throw the body as much as he can, and Goche he'll finish his checks here and there, so he shows that heaviness in his game, but he doesn't do it as at nearly of a consistent level, I'll say. But those are two comparable names I could give for Goche. But you know, his the mix of his game is very unique in his own way, and I've been analyzing his shooting mechanics a little bit more, and they're pretty high end. And there are times where I come away watching the way he releases and he gets his hands away from his body and he brings the top hand back in to kind of really snap the puck off the middle of his blade with very good velocity. And some of it looks like a bit of like an Austin Matthews release. And I'm not saying Cutter Goche is going to be a 60 goal scorer. So before I
you
get
heard it here
radioed,
first. Jared Brown across my
yeah,
hockey.
I'm going to get
Kutagochi
radioed
is
for
next
this.
Austin Matthews.
Oh my God, yeah, I'm going to get
Yeah.
radioed for that comment. But I watch his release, and there are times where he comes in on a breakaway and he just makes a quick little move, and his hands are so deceptive, and then he'll just slide it 5-hole, much like what Austin Matthews can do. And so I've been watching his shot and watching how he's been scoring goals this year, and I'm like, that's pretty high end. Like I think he can definitely be a consistent 30 goal scorer in the NHL.
Which I think probably brings us to kind of the crux of the question, which is the Blue Jackets drafting 6th and 12th in this
Hmm.
draft. Do you think Kutagoshi falls to 6th? Obviously, he's the third ranked North American skater, but then you've got to
Yeah.
mix in the Europeans, and he probably doesn't go third
Hmm.
overall. Fit 6th? Does he fit into the Blue Jackets' plan? Do you think?
I think it could go. He could go 6. He could go 12. Honestly, I think so because of how close the draft class really is. And it's going to really depend on. I think it's going to depend a bit on recency bias on how he's finished down the stretch, which could make him go 6th. It could make him go top 5, maybe. I think it's maybe in the 4th, 5th spot. You could argue he's getting traction to go there, but I think he's had a great second half of the season. He had a really good under 18 tournament. Um, and I think if he goes 6th overall, that's just very good considering he was probably a late first rounder to start the year, and he's really elevated his game, obviously. But I could also see him going 12th. So, but I think he's a guy for Columbus that would really kind of help them out on the wing. And playing alongside like him playing alongside Cole Sillinger could be a really good kind of duo, because they can both play with a little bit of an edge and heavy game, and that, I think, you look at how Columbus has had success. I know they've had a coaching change and all that, but they've had success in the playoffs playing that kind of heavy game. And you look at how, just coming off the top of my head, Brandon Dubinsky against Crosby in the playoffs. He was such a pest there, and like I think that's what Cole Sillinger can be. And then you mix in the skill with Cutter Gauthier, and that's a pretty formidable duo, I think.
So, in a minute, we're going to talk about a little bit more about Kotogoshi and also a little bit about who the Blue Jackets should take 6th overall. But first, I'm going to tell you about BetOnline because our partners at BetOnline continues to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports information. And that is why they are the official sports betting site of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find all the latest odds, news, and sports development, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball fights, even next season's NFL futures, as well as, of course, the Stanley Cup playoffs. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting, wagering information from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action because BetOnline is where the game starts. Yeah, there's been a lot of talk in like Columbus media circles. I say a lot of talk in Columbus media circles. There's mostly just one guy
Mhm,
that is saying this a lot, and he's been talking a lot about how Columbus needs some size. They need some grit. They need to get
mhm,
meaner. And I don't necessarily agree with that,
mhm,
but I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that because I
mhm.
really like how the team played this year. Obviously, they didn't make the playoffs, but I thought they were a lot better than everyone
Yeah.
expected them to be. And I don't necessarily think that that is kind of in their identity anymore. They've kind of
Mhm.
moved on from like the Dubinsky. As much as I love Brandon Dubinsky,
Yeah.
no longer on the team. Nick Foligno, no longer on the team.
Yeah.
Josh Anderson has gone. Pierre-Luc Dubois is gone. Max Domi kind of played that role, even though he's like
Mhm.
5'9" on a good day.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't necessarily think that the team needs that kind of size or
Mhm.
grit anymore. But I'm wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I think you need a good balance, for sure. I think you need, um, 1 or 2 maybe highly skilled guys that, I would say runs the power play and runs the offense at even strength. That's what you'll need to succeed. At the end of the day, and we looked at, let's just look at how the NHL was this year. I mean, goal scoring was up tremendously. And everyone was like, okay, well, everyone was scoring goals in the regular season, but we know what happens in the playoffs, and the
With more
playoffs gets
goals.
tight. And there's more blowouts in the playoffs this year than regular season games. I mean, um, it's like the clearly this year, I don't know what it is. The players are just getting more skilled. They're getting, better, or maybe it's just an off year for goalies. Who knows? But I think you need that. You need those 1 or 2 highly skilled players, but then you need a bit of grit. You need some guys who are going to play a little bit tougher, and especially if you can get like a center or a winger that can play tough man on man defense. They don't even need to really get under the opponent's skin. They just need to let the other players know that they're there. Like, and I think as much as people hate Tom Wilson, that's what he does really well. He lets you know he's on. He when he's on the ice because he's coming at you. But then you know you got Kuznetsov and Ovechkin. Where Ovechkin's an outlier because he can hit. He's a freight train and does everything. Um, but Kuznetsov, I mean, he doesn't play physical at all, but he is very very skilled, and that's why Washington has success. And uh, for bracket reasons, I hope they end up beating Florida, so I get that prediction right.
Yeah, I tell this story a lot, but I was talking to this was a long, long time ago. I was talking to Steve Dangle about Alex
Mhm.
Ovechkin, and he was like, and it's always stuck with me. He says Alex Ovechkin plays in the NHL like I play NHL on my Xbox. You know, he
Yeah,
routinely was leading the league in points, goals, and hits.
yeah,
Dude's just a like you say a freight train. But
yep.
I guess let's kind of wrap back around and just
Mhm,
finish up with so the Blue Jackets are picking sixth overall.
yep,
Who would you put in that spot? Who do you think the Blue Jackets should draft? And who
mhm,
do you think the Blue Jackets will draft? Because I feel like that those are two very different answers sometimes.
yeah. Well, so, I've done a bit of I've done a little bit of a mock draft myself for the top 16 after the draft lottery happened. So I'm kind of like thinking of who players or who teams are going to pick and all that. And if it may not happen, but if Joachim Kemmel is available at number 6, I think you pounce on that pick right away and you don't look back. Like I think that he's a guy who I think he's got the best release and the best shot in the the draft. He's not even that big of a player, but the power of his shot makes it seem like the guy should weigh like 220 pounds, like Ovechkin. Like it's really, and he plays like Ovechkin from that um, left circle on the power play. He's got a massive one timer, big windup, and he can beat goalies clean with the power and accuracy of his shot. So I think that is, if I'm Columbus, that's who I'm targeting with the sixth overall pick. He may not get there. I could definitely see him going top four. But we'll see come draft day if that is going to be available. For who I think they will choose, I mean, I could see them choosing. I could see them choosing a defenseman if they're there. I could definitely see them choosing um, probably Juracek because I think Nemec is a better defenseman than Juracek. For the record, I like Nemec's upside more. I think he's got more potential to be more dynamic offensively, but Juracek fits that two-way build and he can play in all situations really well. And I think when I look at Columbus, you already have Zach Werenski as your number one power play guy. So I think if you can get if you bring in someone like Juracek, maybe he becomes like your number one penalty killer on the back end, and that could really help them out. So I could see them going for someone like David Juracek at number 6 if he's available. Again, he could go higher, but those would be my two options. I think Kemmel, I'd go with Kemmel over Juracek, but if they're both available at number 6, I think they'll go with Juracek just to improve their blue line, and I don't know if they really have a a big right shot, or not big, but like a high end right shot defenseman coming up. I know they drafted Coolmans
Hmm.
and Svozil, but I forget if Coolmans is a right shot or a left shot. Is he a right shot?
I want to
I forget.
say Tillman's a left shot, but do not quote me on that.
I know Svozil is a left shot, but I could be just that my opinion could be right out the window there if Coolmans is a right shot,
But yeah,
but
I think, like you said, I think Columbus has gone from having quite a deep prospect pool on D to suddenly being like, oh, actually, we need to kind of restock the cupboard a little bit. And I think there's a handful of guys
yeah.
now that are going to be good in a couple of years, but I wouldn't be
Mhm.
surprised if we can take a defenseman in this draft to try and get like
Yeah.
not necessarily a replacement Seth Jones, but someone to kind of hang on that top pairing with
Mhm.
Werenski because I don't
Yep.
know. I think there are guys on the line in the lineup right now that have that potential.
Mhm.
Adam Boquist, if he can stay healthy, I think could be that number two defenseman. I think there's potential in
Yeah.
Jake Bean. Andrew Peak played that role for most of the season, which was very confusing to me. But he did fine, I guess. But we don't really have someone like right now that I think is a deadlock to be
Yeah.
that defense partner for Zach Werenski.
Yeah, I think, Bolkvis and Jake Bean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they are kind of similar player
Mm,
types. That for me, it leaves room for only one of them in the lineup once you, I guess, improve. the balance of your lineup. Like you said, Andrew Peak did a good job, I think, solidifying the role of playing top four and maybe even top minutes. But he seems like a player that probably would be best as like a strong second pairing guy, right?
He's our new David Savard.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I've been thinking about it, and then obviously we have
Hmm.
Vladislav Gavrikov, who is our single defensive defenseman. He's the only one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bunch of Rovers and then him, and he was
Yeah.
really, really good this season, I thought. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
I don't know, the defense core is kind of weird for
Yeah.
Columbus minutes. So I
And
think I
that and
would like
yeah.
them to take a defenseman if they
That
can.
that's why I think they would go with Juracek, because I think if you could get Juracek to be, I guess you would put him maybe alongside Zach Werenski on that top pair. That could be a really not fun top pair to play against if you're an
Yeah,
Eastern Conference team down the line, because you got the offensive instincts and the IQ of Werenski, and then you got the defensive IQ of Juracek, who
yeah.
also is not bad offensively either. So
And I think that's all I've got for you today. Tomorrow, Jared will be back and we'll be talking about a different NHL potential prospect. We'll be talking about Swiss prospect Marco Kasper and whether he could fit in on the Blue Jackets or potentially go 12th overall to them. So that is tomorrow's episode. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.